my name is Kayla Galloway, and it is July 21st of 2019. Today I'm going to talk to you about the skeletal system. Now, I wasn't able to afford the lab kit, so I have this skeletal model right here. And then I have this as my cranial bone model. Alright, so let's hop right into it. The main components of the skeletal system can be divided into two parts. There is the axial skeleton, which is the bones that lie along the vertical axis, and the appendicular skeleton, which consists of the upper and lower limbs, as well as the pectoral and the pelvic girdles. Right, so the pectoral girdles consist of the clavicle, which can be labeled as number 3. There's a clavicle on both sides. There are 2 clavicles. And then the scapula, which can be labeled as number 4. There's a scapula on both sides as well. And then the pelvic girdles consist of the ilium, which is this whole region here. Sorry. This whole region here. Okay, and then the ischium, this whole region here, and the pubis, this whole region here. All right, let's go into the bones of this guy. Now, number 1 is known as the cranium. Number 2 is known as the mandible. Number 3, like I said, and number 4, number 3 is the clavicle. I already said that, and the this is going to be the scapula. Sorry, I had a brain fart. And number 5 is going to be the thoracic cage, commonly known as the rib cage. You know, the ribs. And then number 6 is going to be the ulna. Number 7 is going to be the radius. Number 8 is the pelvis. Number 9 is the coccyx. Number 10 is the metacarpals. Number 11 is the femur. Number 12 is going to be the fibula. Number 13 is the tibia. Number 14 is the metatarsals. Number 15 is the phalanges. Number 16 is going to be the tarsals. Number 17 is the kneecap, commonly known as the kneecap, or the patella. Number 18 is the phalanges, again, that's the fingers and toes. Number 19 is the carpals. Number 20 is going to be the sacrum region of the vertebral column. Number 21 is going to be the lumbar region of the vertebral column. Number 22 is going to be the thoracic region of the vertebral column. Number 23 is going to be the humerus, this arm bone. Number 24 is the sternum, this bone right here on the chest. And then number 25 is the cervical region of the vertebral column. Now let's go into the types of bones. So there are 4 types of bones in the skeletal system. There are the long bones. The long bones are longer than they are wide. They are also hollow and they are filled with bone marrow. And they consist of the radius, the ulna, the tibia and the fibula, the humerus, the femur, as well as the metatarsals, the metacarpals, the phalanges, and the clavicle. Now let's go into the short bones. Short bones are wider than they are long, and they provide support and some movement. Now the long bones provide more support for the weight of the body, and they provide a lot more movement, of course. But the short bones do just a little bit of movement. And these bones are going to include the tarsals and the carpals, small bones in our wrist, and the small bones in our ankle. All right, so moving on to the third bone type is going to be the irregular bone. Now, the irregular bone vary in shape and structure, but they're going to be the vertebral column, as well as the skull, the patella, and the elbow. And then on to the fourth bone type is the flat bones. Now, flat bones protect internal organs, and they also serve as areas of attachment for muscles. Flat bones are going to include the ribs, the sternum, the scapula, as well as the pelvis. You can see its pelvis is pretty flat. All right, so those are all the bone types. So now let's move on to our cranial bones. Woohoo! So, start how it's numbered. Number 1 is going to be the frontal bone. Number 2 is going to be the nasal bone. Number 3 is the zygomatic bone there. Number 4 is going to be the maxilla. Number 5, we already said number 5 is the mandible, this whole lower jaw. And then number 6, let's move down. Number 6 is going to be the parietal bone. Number 7 is going to be the temporal bone. Number 8, you can see it back, it's a bone at the back of the skull. It's going to be the occipital bone. Sorry about that. Number 9 is the sphenoid. There. Right here, number 9 is the sphenoid. Moving back up to number 10. Number 10 is the ethmoid. Number 11 is going to be the infraorbital foramen. Number 12 is the vomer. Number 14 is the supraorbital foramen. And number 15 is the lacrimal bone. All right. So one clinical application of the skeletal system that I will be experiencing, I'm going to be a nurse, is osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis affects 10 million individuals in America, which is pretty common. And what it does is it causes the bones to be very brittle, weak, porous, and they just are able to break very easily, leading to fractures that occur very commonly. Now, the reason for these fractures occurring very commonly and the reason for the bone being so brittle, so thin, and so weak is because pretty much our bones are reabsorbed and broken down constantly throughout our lives. Bones constantly get rebuilded, reabsorbed several times. And this is done by our osteoblasts and our osteoclasts, which are cells in our body. And what they do is they allow for this reabsorption and this rebuilding of bone. Now, osteoblasts are the ones that rebuild the bone. They deposit calcium and phosphate and collagen into the bone. They uptake calcium and phosphate from the blood, deposit it into the bone, and also deposit calcium, and they create this like calcium, phosphate, collagen matrix that makes the bone very rigid and very sturdy. Now, osteoclasts reabsorb this calcium and this phosphate back into the bloodstream, and they do this when our blood calcium levels are low. It's a bad thing when our blood calcium levels are low because we need calcium to contract our muscle as well as for the contraction of blood vessels. Now, osteoclasts make sure that our body has enough calcium to do these things. So we have this constant cycle of osteoblasts working to build the bone and osteoclasts working to reabsorb the bone, and they do it at the same rate so that our bone stays the same, has the same amount of extracellular matrix at all times, has the same amount of rigidness and sturdiness. Okay, now in osteoporosis, osteoblasts don't work as quickly as osteoclasts. They're much slower. They don't deposit calcium and phosphate and collagen into the bone as quick as osteoclasts reabsorb calcium and phosphate from the bone into the blood. So this causes our bones to be very, very weak and fragile.